Thank you for tuning in to part 4 of this video series on Google Slides. Here we're going to show you how to add Google Form assignments. The processes here are probably not going to be too much different than what you've seen so far in this video series. In this video, I intend to give you a little more perspective on how I might set up what a day or a part of a day might look like in completing a lesson. So the organization of this lesson starts with a video opener that I would give. So again, we're using Google Slides as our home base. We'll branch out to a video with some comprehension questions. Then we might have a class discussion with some critical thinking questions. Then we'll go to that Google form that I mentioned where students will complete a guided reading on Google Forms. So I'm not going to go through the lesson with you as far as making you learn about the rise of Hitler, but this is an example of what a page might look like. Give a couple questions that correspond to their comprehension of the video. Just as an aside, I do show a lot of video clips. I like to ask questions that are not going to take them a ton of effort to answer. I really want them to focus on in the video, but be able to hit maybe a couple key points without overwhelming them as they watch the video. Typically, I found 2 questions is great. If you can get 2 questions, their participation level remains pretty high, and they'll actually look for those questions as long as they're spaced out far enough in the video. So typically that's what I try and do, just to hold their attention as well as I can. Usually with Hitler, I don't have to hold their attention. This is one of the topics they tend to be interested in. But anyways, it's about the rise of Hitler. So we'll start with this video and kind of introduce a conversation about the state of Germany leading into, or in post-World War I, leading into World War II. Then, as I mentioned, we will get into some discussion questions. So here, I would have them write these answers down in a notebook. We could totally use the Google Doc option or the Google question option in Google Classroom to have them answer these critical thinking questions as well. I didn't on this particular slide, but maybe that's something I'll go back and add now that I'm kind of developing or getting ready for the part virtual, part in classroom model. So that's the second phase. Third phase here then would be students completing this Google form. So again, all I do is create a picture or have a picture of a Google form icon. I found it online on Google and added the link here. Click the link. All right, and it'll take the kids directly to their Google Classroom, and it will give them the opportunity to click on the Google form that they need to complete. Oh, and I'm not in the Chromebook, so of course I'm going to face an error here. I will just show you from my perspective. Let's see, so we need Hitler rise. This is the assignment. All right, so now you're going to actually, well, I can show you this preview. Nope, I can't show you the preview. I can just show you the teacher editing mode. It's basically the same thing. It's because they have locked mode on, which I'll explain to you in a moment. So Google Class or Google Forms is probably my favorite thing to create assignments on for students for a few reasons. The first reason is you can incorporate so many different resources. As a history teacher, from reading comprehension to maps to charts to DBQ style questions to essays, even if I so chose, to multiple choice, matching, vocabulary, and just anything that you can dream of, you really can make happen. Now, it might not be simple and cut and dry. You might have to think your way out of the box, but you can make it happen. You can install videos in here. There's a lot of different things you can do. So I like to do this and set it up in chunks because that helps, again, hold their attention and keep them focused. So here I've chunked a reading about the rise of Hitler, where you get this section, and this that you're looking at here, I didn't type this into Google Forms. I actually took a screenshot of a Google Doc where I had information and put it in here. created some corresponding multiple choice questions. Next chunks of the readings right here, some corresponding questions, so on and so forth. All right, you kind of see how this particular guided reading is set up. Like I said, I got propaganda in here that they can look at, evaluate using the questions. This is actually a longer guided reading. And then at the end of these, I typically put a checking for understanding section where I typically try to use Regents questions that they would encounter, and that way they get some Regents experience, and their questions that demonstrate they've learned from doing this activity. So this is a guided reading that I've set up in Google Forms. And again, I intend to have another video series on different ways that I've used Google Forms to create assignments for students. For this one, it's really nice for the reason that it is self-grading. So when kids click submit, they will get an instant score out of their points. Here it says 44 points. I must have made each question 2 points apiece. And they will get an instant grade. They'll get instant feedback. They'll be able to go look at what they missed. They'll be able to look at what they got right and have an instant evaluation. So it does two things for me. It gives them instant feedback, and it takes away the need for me to have to grade this. So it allows me to put more time into my planning, which is something I would much rather do than grading multiple choice things. So I think they're fantastic. And this is just, again, one example of how I will use this. And hopefully I can show you more in a different video. So going back to my Google Slides here, you kind of see, and again, this is a little briefer than it normally would be, but you see the layout of here in 2 slides, kind of getting into the nuts and bolts of a lesson, and then we would probably have some type of ticket out the door discussion, something to put a cap on this. But again, we went to a few different places. We were all contained within Google Slides. So I want to show you how to add Google Forms, and this should look familiar from the last video where we added Google Doc links. It's not much different. So we want to go to find an image of Hitler. Copy that image, put it in. Okay, and then just as I, in the prior video, added new assignments. Oh, sorry, I gotta get back home. Just as I added those questions and added those the Google Doc, I will add a Google form. I'll go to create. I'll create an assignment. So this would be an actual graded assignment for me. So my topic would be marking period 1 graded assignments. We'll call it the rise of Hitler. We'll add the document. So again, it's right here because I recently used it. So this button here, if you haven't used Google Forms and Google Classroom, called locked mode, what this allows for is for students, when they are completing this form, they cannot access anything else on their Chromebook. They are locked in to completing that form until they press submit, and they can't go anywhere else. So it's kind of a nice feature. There are certainly times where I have Google Forms where I require them to go to different sites, and I don't turn that locked mode on because they need to access resources and things. For this one, since it's all contained within the form, I would turn locked mode on. The other thing I would turn on is grade importing. This is what I talked about as far as it being a self-grading assignment. Once this is done and they've submitted all their works, all I need to do is click import grades, and it'll show me what everyone got on their grade, and then I type it into School Tool, and I am done with grading. So there you go. I press assign. Everything's here. Just going back to the Google Doc, with a Google form, I don't have to click any make my own copy or do anything of that nature, because a form is a form that's filled out individually anyways. So you don't have to worry about that with a Google form. And then just as I shared links to Google Docs and to Google Questions, I go to my three dots, I copy the link, go back to my presentation. This will be my link, copied it, paste it, apply, and students are now going to be brought to their Google form. Hopefully that video was informational for you. Mostly there, it wasn't a new skill. Just you kind of saw a lesson layout, and you were able to see what an example of what Google Forms can do as far as online assignments. Again, with that idea of going paperless and being able to be hands off and have students submit work online. It's a cool tool, and it's something that has endless opportunities that I hope to show you in another video. All right, thanks for tuning in.